Hi all. In this session, we will see different approaches to teaching, such as pedagogy, andragogy, and heutagogy. The term pedagogy or the concept pedagogy uh, will be familiar to you, and pedagogy is the science of teaching, or it is the methods, principles, and practices of teaching. Moreover, pedagogy is meant for teaching of academic subjects, teaching of learners who are dependent in nature, more dependent to teachers and teaching. While andragogy is an approach for adult learners. So, adult learners, the mature learners, the nature of learning of adults is self directed. So, andragogy is meant for managing the learning of self directed learners, and heutagogy, the highest in the hierarchy, is meant for managing the learning of self determined learners or self managed learners. So, these three can be said as a continuum. Begins with pedagogy, in which the learners learn the basics of learning with the help of teachers to a great extent. Then andragogy, the adult learners who have their own preferences on learning and then proceed to a self-managed system of learning through heutagogy. Now let us see the details of each of these concepts: pedagogy, andragogy, and heutagogy. Pedagogy, as I mentioned, include methods, principles, and practices of teaching, which is especially focused towards teaching of academic subjects. And it's a synonym of education. Pedagogy, the science of teaching, as we discussed, and there are different pedagogical approaches as well. As you know, education, in education, you are familiar with different types of approaches, and the more or less same approaches we can see as pedagogical approach, such as inquiry based approach, reflective approach, integrated approach, collaborative approach, constructivist approach, etc. So these are different approaches, pedagogical approaches, means approaches towards teaching, and which approach uh, is suitable for your learners for a specific topic, that you have to decide. The teacher can decide which approach is suitable for a specific topic and to a specific level of learners with different characteristics, etc. Because all approaches have its own advantages and limitations. Then there are different learning styles with respect to pedagogy, such as auditory, visual, reading and writing, kinesthetic. Similar to that of the approaches the learning styles also, that pedagogic learning styles also have influence in the teaching learning process. So the auditory elements, or the learners who learn heavily upon auditory materials, or visual, or reading and writing, kinesthetic, whatever it is, or a combination of these four. So here also a teacher has to plan and design and utilize various kinds of learning styles according to the topic and the learners. There are pedagogical principles. The principles such as challenge, explanation, modeling, deliberate practice, questioning, and feedback. Challenge, we can say, as a beginning point, initiation, to begin with the introduction of a new learning situation or a lesson. So that may be not so familiar, at least some element will be new for the children. So that's meant by the principal challenge. Then explanation, to describe or to explain what is the challenge, what it is. Try to understand the situation, the object, the experiment, the process, whatever it is. Then modeling, a demonstration about what it is. You know, demonstration means it is a display by someone who is proficient in a particular aspect. So that's another major principle. So a modeling shall be there, a demonstration shall be there. Then only the learners get acquainted to the new uh, material or new learning or new knowledge. The next principle, deliberate practice. That also is an essential principle because practice is essential for learning. So there shall be adequate practice, and at the time of practice, naturally, there will be doubts, seeking clarifications, etc. So, for these questions of different type or different questions will be naturally aroused from children. So, that's another principle. The type of question, the nature of question, and how these questions are taken care of by the teacher. All these are highly influential in learning. Then feedback. How, when, and how a teacher provide feedback. What are the different tools, or what are the different techniques? What is the procedure for giving feedback to learners? Whether it is a provision for a continuous system of feedback, or an intermittent feedback, or an end feedback, etc. That's also depending on the complexity of the topic, level of the learner, etc. So, in any case, a continuous, specific, targeted, constructive feedback is always welcome. Then there are different pedagogical skills that an educator or a teacher requires: a capacity to plan, lead, and develop teaching. So, a teacher shall be skilled in planning, developing, and leading the process of teaching with general and specific learning outcomes. So, a teacher have to plan the lesson plan, or planning for teaching a particular topic, and at the same time in the plan include specific and general learning outcomes. And the teacher shall be skilled in leading the lesson, and that means transacting the lesson, developing the lesson, and leading the children towards the attainment of the specific and general outcomes. There are different stages in pedagogy, that is in teaching. The stages that you may be familiar, the stages such as preparation, presentation, association, generalization, and application. This is the common stages for teaching also. So the similar one in the case of pedagogy: a preparation for teaching, teaching a lesson or a topic. Then it's presentation or transaction, association of this topic with other topics and other disciplines, if there is a possibility, with the previous knowledge base of the learners, and by providing ample examples and experiences, lead learners to generalize the new knowledge and seeking opportunity to apply the new knowledge. So these are the different stages in pedagogy. So a science of teaching, or a synonym for education, pedagogy is the solid platform which is empowering dependent learners, especially the learners at the beginning of a formal system of education. Then andragogy. So andragogy, as we discussed, management of learning of self-directed learners or adult learners. So methods and principles for adult learning. It's not teaching, because adults having their own perceptions. They are directing their learning process, so they have their own perceptions and actions on their learning. They have complete control over their learning. They are not at all teacher dependent. They are depending on themselves on learning. That's why we designated it as different from that of pedagogy, as andragogy. The major principles of andragogy: self concept, experienced learning readiness, immediate application, intrinsic motivation, and need to know, a need for knowledge. So the first one, self concept. The adult learners or mature learners, they have well developed self concept. The concept about learning, concept on how to learn, because they have some already developed a habit of learning. So their concept about learning, how an individual learns, is fully under his or her control. Then the adult learners, another principle, uh, they are highly experienced because they may be coming from some uh, field, some background with practical knowledge, practical life experiences. As we, when compared with children, they will have more experiences. And if the new learning program or course, something will be related to their profession as well. So naturally, they are having a dense or rich experiences in the area. Then they will be ready to learn because it is their necessity. They came to learn a particular thing. So there is no hindrances for learning readiness, and they will be intrinsically motivated. No need of an extrinsic motivation. They are already motivated to learn the new knowledge, whatever it is, and their desire for new knowledge. So sometimes the adult learners will be more experienced than that of their educators. And the role of a teacher or a role of an educator in andragogy is said as facilitator. The role of a facilitator means those who ensure necessary facilities for their learning. That's all. Nothing more. Because the learners are already motivated, they have a target in their mind, they have so many experiences. So, on the basis of all these characteristics of an adult learner, the educator have just to ensure the facilities for their learning. That's why we can say them as facilitator. The highest one, or the third one in the hierarchy, heutagogy. We have already mentioned that heutagogy is the management of learning of self-managed learners. So it's the highest level of learners. Learners who reach at the highest level, who manage their own learning. The learning process, they are fully managed by them. You might have heard about learning management systems like Moodle, Google Classroom, etc. Such learning management systems are prevalent nowadays. So those systems are based on these heutagogy principles because those can be effectively utilized by learners in this particular level because they can manage their own learning. The principles of heutagogy: learner contract, self efficacy and capability, metacognition and reflection, non-linear learning, learning how to learn, flexible curriculum, negotiated assessment, etc. So, a learner contract, it is not a written contract, but in a self managed system, there shall be an agreement with the organization of learning materials or the structuring of the course or program. In LMS mentioned in as a Moodle or Google Classroom, that it is inherent in that uh, with respect to different components for assessment, discussion, sharing, peer review. There are so many inputs in that, and there are so many landmarks while proceeding through that learning management system. So, those learners who are well versed in this self management process are capable of successfully completed such kind of programs. And at the same time, by enrolling for such program, we can uh, empower ourselves to such a state of learning of self-managed learning process. Then the self-efficacy and capability. That's the second principle, which is crucial for self-management of learning. Then metacognition and reflection, that also is essential. Then non-linear learning, as against to the other two. There will be more flexibility in learning as well when at a specific point of time, if the content or the material or the activity is which cannot be properly understood, then there will be opportunity to go in detail in its through its different aspects with more illustrations or examples, activities, etc. So it's a kind of branching type of learning. Wherever possible, you can go for adequate depth and breadth. Then learning how to learn, that how to learn, mastering that process of learning. Then curriculum shall be flexible, and assessment, there shall be a negotiation with the learners and educators regarding assessment. What all components, tools, techniques shall be utilized as for assessment. And in Heutagogy, the role of the teacher is as a mentor. So the role is as a mentor or a guide. So by the end of the discussion, we can see that this pedagogy, andragogy, and heutagogy, there is a hierarchy with respect to nature of learning. In pedagogy, its learners are mostly dependent on teachers. In andragogy, learners are self-directed, teacher as a facilitator, and in heutagogy, self-managed learners and teacher as a mentor. So thanks for watching the presentation. Thank you all.